I'm all
I'm
for it.
preparing. This meeting is being live streamed. Preparing to live stream the meeting. Meeting is now streaming on YouTube. So it's kind of hard to tell sometimes when you fire these things off, like when
Yeah.
you're really live. And so what
Mhm.
I'll just say is that this meeting is being live streamed. It's working.
Preparing
To live stream the meeting.
Oh, wow. There's a bit of a lag.
Yeah, there is. But that's a good way to know that it's live. So thank you for
Cool.
watching the recording of this as Ethan and I get to talk a little bit about what's happening in 2023. We recently met at a conference where we went to go learn more about capital raising. So Ethan, why don't you give, yeah, Tim I was amazing. Good. He was a shout out. And so why don't you give everybody a quick introduction who you are, and we'll jump into the material.
Yeah, so my name's Ethan. My company's Hydra Capital Holdings. Over the last year or so, I've predominantly focused on acquisitions on the hotel acquisition side of things for a few syndication groups that convert hotels to multifamily. And, more recently, I've been getting into trying to take down these deals myself. And so, what I've been focused on probably in the last quarter leading up to this one is just really narrowing down good ways to find deals on the acquisition side, where to find deals, how to negotiate these good seller finance terms with sellers and find the deals that actually make sense, because we're leading into a time now where the cost of money is above what the cap rates people are advertising. And that just by default is not a good situation unless you have some combined interest rate with seller carry. And so there's just a lot of different ways that I think that, people could be interlooping different strategies into how they're trying to source deals, additional to different ways that they can find deals that they might not even be thinking of. So I kind of just wanted to touch on that, get your experiences for, what it's been like on some of the projects you're working on. And then I can go over the last few projects we've looked at and, kind of how that played out.
Sure. So yeah, what I'm seeing in the marketplace. So I'm doing both single family land and now commercial. On the single family, I'm a lender, and I'll buy a couple of properties here and there for myself, but that's kind of not my jam anymore. I'm much more interested now in lending to other people who find those deals. And then on the land space, I actually just got a property verbally under contract this past week. And my experience with that is that the seller was not just oozing with motivation. He was kind of we pretty much were giving him his number because he's given us our terms. And those terms are more about giving us time to get the property entitled instead of taking title to the property, raising all the money, and then hoping we get entitlements. He's not in a hurry to move. So, but then in the larger commercial space, when you're not just buying land, I kind of get the same sense that we were just talking about off camera, that a lot of the sellers still haven't felt the pressure from the marketplace yet.
And ultimately, it's because not enough people are putting pressure to them, right? You've got these deals that, people instantly, when they see them listed or they get them from a wholesaler, they would rather pass on even engaging with those deals than even attempt to make an offer. And as Marco Kalzowski, I hope I pronounced that last name right, but he was at Tim Mai's event, and he, the guy wearing the Sesame shirt, the purple jacket and the nice shoes. Yeah, that guy. So he basically was saying, if the first offer that you submit to a seller isn't a slap in the face or an insult, you're offering too high. And what I think, my interpretation of that, and I really agree with that. And I was just meeting with somebody yesterday who had some light to shed on that, is basically you need to give these sellers a wake up call, because if you don't, nobody else will, because they'll just pass on the deal. Right. And so they really need to just come to an understanding of, okay, maybe you're advertising this a little bit too high, or that, you don't necessarily know how to properly evaluate your deal. That we went to see a 56 unit yesterday that essentially they were trying to analyze it based on a pro forma. They had remodeled half the units, and they were trying to tell me, oh, once it's the other half's done, you can get $1,450 a unit. And then it's, all right, well, I'm doing my math here. And it's like, once I remodel it, maybe we can get even $1,500. And even at that number, at a 6.5 cap, we're still underneath what your offer or what you're asking, right? And so there's a few things going on there, in my opinion. One, they probably don't know how to evaluate properties. They had a 12% expense ratio on there, so that's another thing too. Yes,
not
crazy low, and it's because they had $27,000 off of an $800,000 gross for property management. That's how low their cost was, but that's not, you can't apply that to every situation,
right?
So you need to be able to first identify what the expenses that they're currently running are and compare it to what they are going to be. Secondly, you need to know how they're pricing their deal. Are they going off of current financials or what they, could have been doing? And you kind of have to tell them, look, I'm not going to pay you for work that I need to do, right? That's just unreasonable to ask. I'll give you a fair offer based upon how it's currently performing, and then try and factor in a little bit to that offer of how it would be performing once I take it over if I adjust the expenses. And so most people, they don't either know how to do that, or they're just not giving the sellers this information. And, they might just kind of tell you to F off, or, might not accept you on the first go around, but trust me, when they don't get offers because nobody's giving them to them, they'll come back to you and they'll say, okay, let's talk about this. Can you at least do this? There's a hotel we were working out in Tucson back in September of last year, 148 unit. The sellers they bought this thing for 6 in June, right? And the property's in worse condition than when they bought it. And they were trying to separate it into 2 parcels, like the event center that they had on property. They were trying to sell for 3 million and the hotel for 9. Crazy, man. They're trying to double their money without doing anything. And now we're at a point where they're going to take 7.9 for both, which is still like, all right, they did nothing and they make $1.9 million over 6 months, but it's a lot better than where we were before. And it's because we went to the property, we did inspections, we pointed out all the things that needed to get done. I mean, they literally had extension cords plugged into an outlet in one room, drilled a hole through the wall, had that extension cord powering a TV in the next room. I mean,
yeah, that's not the code.
No, it's definitely not the code. So you'll see stuff, and ultimately, I think a lot of people, what tends to happen, and for good reason, because they don't want to waste their time, is they just don't engage with these deals. So this is where the importance of deal sourcers, i.e. wholesalers or acquisitions people who solely focus on that, it comes to a place where they need to understand how to have conversations properly with these sellers, what to talk about. They need to bring a tape measure to these showings, pull it out, do some measurements, learn how to estimate, and just really figure out what a property's worth, instead of just, oh, I found this deal in an email chain, let me go market it on Facebook 1,000 times. Because that's a lot of what you're seeing right now. And it's just, it's been like that for a while. But those are a couple things that I've noticed on the last couple of deals we've done. And, that's essentially what I see holding up, good deals right now.
Well, what's interesting right now is that there's a lot of commercial owners that have, I don't know if it's probably mostly apartment complexes, but probably maybe some commercial buildings as well, where they've recently bought within the last 2 to 3 years, and their balloons are coming due, and they underwrote their commercial loan at 4 or 5, maybe 6% interest, and now that interest is going to recast at double, 1.5 times double what they were paying, and it make cash flow anymore. And I think those are the opportunities where you might be able to get into a deal if they have enough room in the deal. I'm not sure how much equity they have, right?
And to touch on that a little bit, I think in the hotel industry specifically, you had during COVID all of these hotels that were not producing during a economic downtime. What is the first thing that goes away? Leisure travel. As a result of leisure travel going away, I mean, also we had restrictions on it, but as a result of that, hotels weren't producing. And so what happened? They weren't able to cash flow. And a lot of these people had to refinance very quickly or do something, sell the property, convert them to multifamily. And they kind of took whatever they can get. Now, this is just my hypothesis, but I think that there's going to be a lot of situations in the hotel industry specifically where, you've got these loans coming knocking, you got these variable interest rates that are going to, essentially do something else like what you were just describing. And maybe a good way to find deals would be to develop relationships with lenders who essentially do not want to get caught in a situation where they're not going to get paid. And they were, if you can get a good relationship with them and say, hey, this is what we do. Why don't we, work together? You tell us which owners are in a situation like this. We'll come in and we'll either buy these properties, get you guys paid off, or we'll assume the loan. They'll love that because, as long as you qualify and have the relevant experience,
qualify, but
you can make the payments. And obviously they don't want you to pay off the loan. They either want to default and take the property or receive the payments. That's how lending works, right? And so if you can develop these relationships, find these assumable loan deals, obviously if it's a terrible loan, you'll just pay it off. But at the same time, you'll probably be able to find a lot of properties, both in multifamily and hotels, triple net, whatever it is, right? You just kind of have to figure out where to go for that. And that's not necessarily a strategy I've been using, but it might, now that we're talking about it, be something that I consider, given a bunch of these lenders that I've met over the last 6 months, 7 months, that call me like, hey, what you got for me? I'm ready to go.
Well, I think I really like that strategy of when you're looking for deals, basically the word I like to use is what else you got. So you
Yeah,
go and find either owners, you find mortgage brokers, you find lenders, lawyers, title companies, anybody
yeah,
who's in the business. Hey, do you have anybody that out there that really needs to sell and needs a quick solution? I could be your guy.
100%.
And you
The-
tell as many people as you can that that's what you do.
And here's the thing, right? I think the best way that you can get, leave an impression with these guys, and I waited 2 months for these, and I'll real quickly show the screen. You know who Tony Robbins is, right?
Sure. Yep.
So I was at an event in Orlando, and Tony Robbins wasn't there, but somebody by the name of Luke Wren. He was basically his right-hand man for a while. I met him and I got his card, and I got one of these metal business cards from him. This is my card, but essentially I spent about $800 on 100 of these. It's got an NFC tag in one of them.
I see it.
Flip it over. It's got a QR code for people who have Android.
Very
and
cool.
It's metal. I mean, it literally sounds like a American Express black card when you tap it on a surface. And so basically, it's a funny story. I also run a construction business here in Atlanta. Right. You never know who you're going to meet. And so to be able to make an impression on somebody at any time is really important, to be on your A game. And I was given an estimate for a home remodel project that, she wanted me to do. And I asked her, what do you do? And she's like, I'm in commercial real estate. And light bulb went off. And I'm like, oh, really? So we get into it. And she is the senior loan originator for the entire Southeastern region of OZK Bank, formerly known as Bank of the Ozarks.
Yeah, it's headquartered here in my hometown.
Yeah. So they finance construction loans for ground up construction. So I'm giving her a proposal today for some, it's not much, $20,000 worth of work on our house. But because I had these business cards and, she quite literally said, I've never seen a business card like that. I'm going to send you an email. Let's stay in touch. Now we probably have a connection there. So, yeah, exactly. Right. And so no matter where you go or what you're doing, always be prepared to have conversations with somebody and just do something like that. A lot of people are too afraid to even go talk to somebody who they think is maybe in a position of power or intimidating. And me, I don't care.
You'll talk to anybody. Yeah, I noticed. Now, what's the trick after you talk to them that we've been talking about?
You got to follow up.
You got to follow up.
You definitely have to follow up. And I will say that is one of my weakest points right now, not because I don't want to, but because the systems and processes that I need to get in place in order to follow up with 400 people that you meet in 3 months aren't in place. And so
that's something I'm actually working on right now, Ethan, is creating that trusted system. That, I mean, I don't have it figured out yet, but there's too much automation. There's too many tools out there right now to be able to create basically a CRM that consistently follows up and it may do some of it automatically, but then maybe prompts you to go and say, here are the 3 people you need to go touch today. Right. And then you go and you send them the text or the Facebook message or however the WhatsApp, whatever makes sense. Right.
And the cool thing is what you should do is you should have there should be a system where it has an app, kind of like what Active Campaign does. When you meet somebody, you can just immediately put a contact in there. The problem with Active Campaign, in my opinion, and many of these other CRMs is you must have an email. A lot of times you just get a phone number or a text or something. And you can't add somebody unless you have an email to some of these softwares, and that just the user interface is really not the best. Yep. And so if there was a way to cater, something where while you're having these conversations, let's say, throw back to the first time that you and I interacted at lunch that, day before the conference started, when we were getting the heroes, right? When we all exchanged contact infos in the middle of the restaurant.
It took forever.
It did, right? We all had to tap each other's phones, and it was just not a good process.
It was cumbersome. It was super cumbersome.
This kind of automates that a little bit, but not everybody's going to go spend $800 on 100 business cards, right? There's got to be something better where you can, while you're talking, take notes, assign a priority level to that contact based upon how the conversation went. And then the CRM automatically at the end of each event kind of generates a report for you and says, hey, you met these people. Of these people, I think these people align with your goals. And how do you track that? How do you even identify what that is? That's the question. That's the big question, right? So if you can figure that out.
So I have a thought. So I was just talking to Tim Mai this past week, and he uses a tool called Hoover, the Hoover app, which I wasn't familiar with it prior to that. And I've downloaded it now, and I've been playing with it, and it may have some of those aspects that you're talking about there. And basically the idea is that it just sucks in all your people that you meet at a conference, and they already have their information out there, and it goes and pulls it in from LinkedIn, it pulls it in from their Facebook.
Oh man.
Yeah. Like Hoover,
man,
like it sucks all the stuff in, right? Yeah.
how does it know who's the right one? Because
I
let's
don't
say you
know.
have somebody named John Smith, for example.
Yeah, or
You know,
Paul
one
Thompson.
guy
Like
could
there's a
be,
few of us out there. Yeah.
yeah,
There's only
there's
so
like,
many Ethan Kierkegaards, right?
I think I'm the only one. I could
Yeah.
be wrong, but I can't seem to find any other Ethan Kierkegaard out there. There's plenty of other Kierkegaards, but no other Ethan. But anyways, yeah, no, it's like you've got situations where you got a unique name, and then you've got like a John Smith, John Doe, or whatever it might be. So that's an interesting tool. I'll have to look into it and see how they, identify.
Yeah,
that.
I'm still playing with it. Yeah, it's definitely one of the things that I'm looking on because I think you and I both are in capital raise mode. We're in deal acquisition mode, and we're trying to grow our networks because I've been in the single family space for so long that I don't really have a deep commercial background, and so I'm kind of basically trying to switch my network a little bit to people who are more conversant and familiar with the commercial space.
100%. And I think, this leads us into our next topic. When you're in this space, there's a few hats that you can wear and a few modes you can be in. And I feel like a lot of people, they're just kind of all over the place, going in every direction, finding deals, trying to raise capital, doing this, trying to follow up with this person. And what you really have to identify for quickly, what is your superpower and what is your avatar, right? Pace Morby put out a good graphic the other day. It was more applicable to wholesaling, single family, his creative financing strategies, but he had like 20 different avatars, like unicorn agent, JV wholesaler, like whatever it might be, right? There's different roles that fit together and a purpose that you have in this process. And for example, I feel like my avatar is really acquisitions and networking.
Talking to people.
I mean, networking is kind of a generic thing. Everybody should be able to do that, but it really, for you, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you're more in a capital raising mode than I
deal
might
structuring
be.
and capital
Exactly,
raising.
deal structuring and capital raising, and to be able to quickly identify what are you and what are the pieces you're missing. That's key, because if you go around trying to be the whole puzzle instead of interlocking with other people who complete the puzzle, you won't get anywhere. This is a relationship.
Transactions are too big. Like you can't do it all yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. It takes, for example, it took me to underwrite a 517 unit property in Houston, Texas. It took me like, 2.5, 3 hours. Right. But then there's also other tasks that take that amount of time. And one person can't take 40 hours worth of tasks and get it done in half a day. But guess what? A team like Massive Capital with Schreier Khan and Mike Bailey, who's got all these systems in place, they can get stuff done. They've got a whole team of people.
They've put together their team for sure.
Exactly. They've got a nice little inner circle type group chat with people who are operators that they partner with. And, they host a weekly underwriting call on a weekly, they occasionally hop on Zoom with like, somebody out in Denver named Normal, for example. I know they underwrote a deal out there together, and they rely on partners to do tasks, but at the same time, they have internal people within their own team to handle it. And that's kind of the end all be all goal. Not everybody's going to start out that way, but the sooner you can find somebody to partner with that you can kind of, that you're not doing the same thing, but you guys kind of interlock together in some sort of
puzzle pieces fit together.
Exactly. Because if you think about a puzzle piece, there's that small piece where it connects, where it's the same, but then the majority of it is elsewhere. So you ultimately be able to connect together, but you got to have so many different skills that you are making a larger piece than just one.
Mm-hmm. So. Well, I think that might be a good place to wrap up. Let's bring this to an end, but let's call our shots. What do you think that it's going to happen in the market in 2023 before we wrap up?
So I think that it's going to be a terrible year for a lot of people. And the reason is because they're not going to adapt. They're going to kind of keep buying like they were in 2020, buying below where the money's at. People, I saw somebody who was buying 1,000 units at 5 cap in Nashville. And I'm like, why? I would never touch that. And they're hoping it's going to go up, but they'll, if it doesn't, what are you going to do? Right. There's a lot of people who are going to come knocking. So there's going to be a lot of people that ultimately fail, as unfortunate as it is. As a result of that, there's going to be a lot of opportunities that arise because, there's going to be a lot of people that need help or need to exit or loans come knocking. So I think, yes, while it might be a bad year and people are predicting that, it's ultimately going to be worse than what it was last year, from this, there's going to be an opportunity that's created for people to be able to do great things. And the key strategy is to know how to find these deals, know how to structure them, and know ultimately how to, create relationships and partnerships in order to take advantage of them. So those are the three big things: deal sourcing, relationships and partnerships, and, knowing how to structure the deals.
I love it. So I'm going to call my shot that I think that we are not quite at the bottom of the recession, but we're close. And I think the recession probably lasts until probably the summer. And that, well, I'm calling June of 2023 the bottom of the summer. I don't, I mean, I might be wrong. That's my
I would agree.
forecast.
March to June, that's
March to
right
June.
when the COVID policy started. And, I remember I was actually still in college at the time when COVID happened. I was on spring break and it got delayed a week. So I took advantage of that. I went to Vegas, Hawaii, and Alaska in the same week. Was only able to do that because of the extension. But while I was traveling, right as I would leave one location, all the hotels would close down. Like I left Vegas, all the casinos shut down. I left Hawaii, all the hotels shut down. And right as I was leaving Alaska, all of the Northern Lights trip to Cheyenne Falls, or probably
shut down. Yeah,
it's shut down. Right. So it's
so you timed it where you were just from the wave the whole time.
Exactly. It's like Raiders of the Lost Ark with the wrecking ball coming behind you. You're just narrowly avoiding it, but you're still experiencing the full, experience.
The full experience.
So
yeah.
It was kind of interesting. But yeah, I think that period of time, spring to summer, is probably going to be when a lot of this stuff is going to come to light and come to surface. But it's people like you and I and Marco and other people who understand this, who are going to incorporate it into our strategy, who are actually going to be able to take advantage of it. And that's the biggest thing.
Yeah,
Telling other people how to take advantage of it is the biggest value that you can add to anybody's conversation.
I think you're right.
People aren't thinking about it.
Yeah, and right now, I really think that the interest rates, people keep talking about interest rates, and they keep saying the interest rates are going to, we'll get back to normal. And I don't think normal is going to be 3% anymore. Like at least not for a while. I think like where we are now, plus or minus probably about 1 point is where the federal funds rate is going to be. So they're going to probably do 2 more raises this year, I'm guessing. And I think at the end of 2023, they're going to watch the market. And I think by 2024, inflation will be down to 3 or 4%. It won't be quite to 2 yet, but the trend is already heading down towards that direction. The jobs market is already starting to soften a little bit. And I think we're just going to have a kind of a soft bounce off. So the recession is going to hit in 2023 and middle of 2023, and then we'll see just a very gradual recovery, just like in 2012 or 8 to 12. It was a very slow incremental growth. And I think we'll look back in 2024 at 2023 and say, okay, that was the bottom. I could be wrong, but interest rates are still going to be high for the foreseeable future. For the next 2 to 3 years, this is the baseline interest rate you need to get used to.
I've got one word: seller finance, subject to loan assumption. I guess I said 3 words. I said I'd say 1, but I said 3. But those are the big 3 things that you can incorporate into your deal structuring strategies in order to do well. I just made an LOI on a 110 property, 102 unit portfolio in Macon, Georgia. We just got an LOI accepted for 50% carry with 5% interest, right? Crazy, Perfect. Right? That's, you're not seeing
I don't think that's crazy. I think it feels crazy to people who haven't done it before, but that's going to become much more common. Like now is the most compelling time to do owner carry, even if it's a portion of it. It doesn't be the whole thing, but it can be pieces of it. You may still go get, some sort of mezzanine lending or some sort of primary lender, but then the rest of it, the second position will be the owner carry.
And I think it's really important for people to understand how to even present that. Most people don't know. I mean, they hear it, they know what it is, but they don't know how to have those conversations. So I've got 3 names for you if you really want to understand something. Obviously, Pace Morby is the king of seller finance. He didn't create it, contrary to what most people think. It's been around.
It's been around forever.
Right. Another one, and I really haven't interacted with him much, but I know that he's doing stuff. He's a business owner here in Georgia. He buys about a house every so often, but he only buys seller finance house. Abraham Gray. So you should definitely check out his contact. And then Eric Klein. Those are 3 kind of single family. And then Pace obviously is doing multifamily now. Wholesaler, property buyers that you can go watch their content or join their courses even and just fully understand, what it is that you need to be saying on the phones, talking about during these appointments, and how to have those conversations so that you can fully set yourself up to present the offer that they're going to accept. I don't do single family much, but I found a primary residence I want here in Georgia. I met with the seller. Turns out they're retiring. They have a 1031, which complicates seller financing just a tad bit. So, I found out how to create a strategy based upon what their needs were and what kind of monthly payment and expense they're going to have in the future. It's really all about just, figuring out what the seller's needs are and how can your strategy make their, world better. right? And most people aren't doing that. They're like, F you, I want your property, here's my price, right?
Yeah,
That's
they're,
not the
they're
way
too
you do it.
aggressive. Yeah.
So, yeah,
Okay, so drop in the comments below. We've called our shots. So Ethan has said the strategies that he's going to be going after. I've kind of called where I think the bottom of the market is going to be. Drop your comments in below, and we'll see you guys next week.
definitely. Well, thanks so much for having me on, Paul. I appreciate you doing it. Man, has it already been half an hour? Time flies,
Yep.
you know?
Yep. I'm going to try and
It's
figure
like
out how
this
to
year will
stop
fly